We are so pleased to virtually welcome our very first guest speaker of this school year STEM Speaker Series. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Vasco Dion Kidd. Dr. Kidd has been practicing orthopedic surgery for over 18 years and is an alumnus of the Orthopedic Surgical Fellowship Program at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. Dr. Kidd holds many degrees, including a Bachelor of Health Sciences degree from California State University in Dominguez Hills, a master's degree in health professions education, and a physician assistant certificate of completion from Western University of Health Sciences. Dr. Kidd has also completed an executive master of public health in management and health policy at UCLA, a doctorate degree in health sciences with a concentration in global health at A.T. Still University, Arizona School of Health Sciences, and a Teaching of Excellence Fellowship Program at the University of Texas Health Sciences in San Antonio. Dr. Kidd is also the recipient of the Outstanding Teacher Appreciation Award in the area of orthopedics from the Kaiser Permanente Family Medicine Residency Program and has taught at several PA programs in the area. Succeeding this very accomplished career, Dr. Kidd is currently the Director of Advanced Practice Providers at the University of California, Irvine. Dr. Deon Kidd's list of accomplishments could keep us here for more than our allotted time. And as you'll come to realize, his passion and enthusiasm is quite infectious. But instead of us telling you, why don't we let you find out for yourself? Without further ado, we present to you Dr. Deon Kidd.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you so much. That was such an eloquent introduction. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, folks, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I think there's some background noise. We might have perfect. Thank you. So again, thank you everyone for taking time out of your lunch schedule. I still think there's okay, good. Okay, so there still might be some background noise I'm hearing. Can we mute? Is that possible? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, thank you for the eloquent introduction. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for taking time out of your lunch period to listen to me. So I'm just going to chronicle my career and then talk a little bit about where I'm at now and some of the activities that I'm involved in. And so without repeating everything that was just said, I always knew that I wanted to go in medicine from an early age. I was a certified nurse assistant at the age of 16 through the regional occupational program known as the ROP program for disadvantaged of folks from or disadvantaged backgrounds. And so that's always been kind of an area that I wanted to go into. At first, I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to go in medicine, let me kind of get my feet wet. And so being a certified registered nurse assistant was kind of the ways of doing that. And I worked in a convalescent facility at the age of 16. And so I was going to high school in the daytime and working in a convalescent facility at night. And then I decided that, maybe I want to get some more vocational training. And so I went back and became a medical assistant and started working at the Loma Linda University Medical Center as I worked as an ER technician for a number of years. And I worked with nursing and physician leadership and decided that, after about 6.5 years of doing that, I got a little bit of fatigue and wanted to move more into the diagnostic arena of taking care of patients on more of a personal level, as opposed to just, putting, drawing blood or putting blood pressure cuffs on or assessing the patient, within my capacity as a technician. And so my interest began to broaden. And so I started, looking at, undergraduate programs that would fit my interest. And I was able to, get plugged into a community college initially to take some classes because it was cheaper and easily accessible for me to get into a community college setting. And at the same time, I was working full time. So I got some of my core requirements out of the way at the community college setting, but then transferred to a 4-year institution where I was able to complete the vast majority of my requirements. And then I entered a PA program at Western University of Health Sciences back in 1999, which is where I met Navjot. And it was a great experience, doing that program. And then when I graduated, I decided, well, let me try to see if I could do either emergency medicine or orthopedic surgery. And so I kind of then branched off and did a fellowship program in orthopedic surgery and have been really doing that for the past 18 years. And I've had various leaderships and administrative roles over my career. I've taught on the academic side as an assistant professor and associate professor, principal faculty in a PA program, as well as done some consulting work on the program side, helping academic medical centers and really academic institutions for that matter to really develop PA programs. And so it's really been a really good opportunity and a good career journey for me as I went through my career. And Now I'm at University of California, Irvine, just to kind of fast forward a little bit. And there I have some responsibility for physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and certified registered nurse anesthetists. And so I really work, with that group to try to bring visibility to the work that they do and to recognize the advanced practice provider role, which is a growing role throughout the United States. And so it's just been a great opportunity to partner with like-minded folks and to be able to coalesce around a common theme of really enhancing the work that we do as healthcare providers. And so to me, that's been just a phenomenal experience. I always tell young folks who are in high schoolers who are interested in going into medicine to really kind of know what you want to do. And what I mean by that is make sure that you take the appropriate courses, get the appropriate experiences. Some programs nowadays want you to have direct patient care experience prior to entering a PA program, or if you're going to go to medical school and do some of the opportunities there, you want to get your prerequisite coursework out of the way early on, as well as take the needed courses in the social sciences to make sure that you are eligible, to apply for these programs. But medicine is a great field. I would love to say that it's recession proof, but we found out through the current pandemic that, sometimes, the economics catches up with us, and sometimes we're not able to keep everyone. And I'm not saying that about my institution, but just around the landscape of what's happening around the country. There are many healthcare institutions that are under economic stress, and some of those institutions have had to furlough some of their folks. So it is a fairly stable career in healthcare, and it is a very noteworthy healthcare because you're taking care of patients. It is a privilege and an honor to take care of people. It really is. They trust you with their care. They tell you very intimate things about what's going on with their care, and your job is to have an impartial view of what's going on, and to just really, and understand this, not to show any partiality, right? You don't want to show any partiality or any indifference to the patients that you're taking care of, but to really come at it from a really patient-centered, caring, compassionate perspective. And I think that's what really matters as we look at the future of healthcare and training the next generation of healthcare providers in the 21st century. So I'll stop there just to see if there are any questions about my career journey, or really to help to see if I can provide any guidance to your career journey as you begin to look at opportunities outside of where you are now.
So Dimple, I'll have you check the Google form. And if you have any questions so far, please go ahead and type them in the chat, or feel free to fill out the Google form that is attached in the chat.
Yes. So our first question today is, have you had any heart-racing experiences in your profession? And if so, how did you handle it?
So great question. So I have in my profession. I remember when I was at CNA, I was on a rotation at one of the local hospitals. And I remember that they brought a patient in that had overdosed on drugs. And that patient was non-responsive, was not breathing, was not able to follow commands, and was brought into a room, and people were, a whole bunch of people were at the bedside, doctors were at the bedside, nurses were at the bedside, technicians were at the bedside, and they were trying to resuscitate this individual. And so here I am looking on, I could see what's happening. And so someone points at me and says, "You get over here and do CPR." And so at the time, my heart was racing because there was a whole bunch of people, and you kind of get freaked out a little bit, like, oh my God, I mean, what's going on? This person is coding on the table, and they're asking me to come in and help with the resuscitation effort. And so I get up on the bed and I start to do my thing. And then at the same time, you always want to have a partner that can switch you off. So as you begin to get a little fatigued, someone else can come in and maintain the continuity of compressions. And so I'm doing my compressions, and I'm kind of looking around at everyone, and they're, everyone's frantic trying to resuscitate and save this individual's life. And the person is not responding to any of the treatment, including the compressions. And so I'm still doing compressions. And then, you get a little fatigued. So I step off the table, and my colleague gets up there and he starts doing compressions, and he passes out. And so they then put me back onto the table, and I'm starting doing compressions again. And I'm thinking to myself, what, this is the experience of healthcare, at least one of the experiences that someone could potentially, see in healthcare. And I'm doing these compressions, and I'm realizing that this person is not coming to. And over time, that person was pronounced dead because we could not resuscitate that individual. And that was really one of the first times that I had really seen that. And it took me for a loop because I didn't know. I mean, I always assumed that, you're giving your best effort that you can save everyone. And sometimes in healthcare, you can't. And you have to know how to deal with that. You have to know how to reconcile your emotions. You have to know how to be able to decompress and not take that home. You have to be able to go back to work the next day and be able to provide the same level of care that you did for that individual that didn't make it. So yes, there are some times where your heart races because you're put into a situation, a very high stressful situation where you're required to respond. And sometimes your best efforts are not good enough to save every patient.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that answer, Dr. Kidd. Our next question for today is, what is one piece of advice you wish you would have had at the start of your education and training?
So that's a great question. So what the advice that I wanted was to get into college earlier. I took some time after high school to do several other programs that were very helpful in helping to steer my career, but it would have been quicker if I had just went into college, completed the requisite coursework, and started to move in the direction that I am now. And I think that is one of the challenges, is that oftentimes after high school, we want to take a hiatus, right? We'll take a couple of years, we're going to travel. Well, we can't travel because we have a pandemic. And so oftentimes we're like, what are we going to do? I want to take a little bit of time off. 12 years of high school was grueling and tough. And, I want to just kind of see the world. Some of the mistakes that people make is that they take time off and they don't go back to really fulfill their dreams. And so I've seen that happen a lot with a lot of young folks that have graduated. They go, oh, I'm going to go back, but they don't go back. And life happens. And when life happens, sometimes you get yourself in a position to where it's really hard for you to go back. So I usually just tell folks, have that momentum coming out of high school to go right into college. Find out what you really want to do. Find the major that is most appropriate for you, right? Oftentimes we switch majors 2 or 3 times in college and end up taking courses that probably are not applicable to the major that we really now want to, to make a fast dash to, right? But I think it's really important to really think about what your career interests are, what really floats your boat, right? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Is it to be a lawyer? Is it to be a healthcare provider? Is it to be a politician? Is it to be a business person? What floats your boat? And then pursue that with all earnestness. Pursue it. And don't give up on that goal, even when you run into roadblocks, even when you stumble along the way, because we all do. We all stumble along the way. We all run into a little bit of roadblocks, but you have to have the resilience and the capacity and the tenacity to continue to move forward in completing your goals. So while it's great to take a little bit of time off, I would not spend a lot of time doing other things other than trying to meet your strategic goal, whatever that is, right? Everyone's here for a purpose. And so what is your purpose and how do you operationalize that so that you can be able to do those things that really are near and dear to your heart?
Definitely. I think that's a great piece of advice. So going on from that, we were wondering, do you think you can take us through your educational journey from to where you are now, from where you began?
Yeah, so I did it the long way. So don't necessarily follow my path. I can tell you that. Going through a couple vocational programs, I entered community college. I got an Associate of Science degree. Spent 2 years at a community college, Crafton Hills College, which is one of the only few colleges that actually has a golf course. So unfortunately, I don't play golf. But that being said, spent 2 years there and then transitioned to a 4-year institution. Ended up getting a Baccalaureate of Science degree. And then at the same time entered a PA program and graduated from that program back in 2001. And then the Orthopedic Fellowship was a year thereafter. And so I did that for a while. And then I worked at Kaiser Permanente for a number of years. And, I just got that bug that says, hey, you need to get a terminal master's degree. So I ended up getting a master's in health professions education and community health. I'm a big public health advocate, so I really enjoy taking care of the health of a population. And so from there, I did that and then decided to go to UCLA and get a second master's and then on to my doctorate at A.T. Still University. And so it has been an incredible educational journey. I love education. I mean, if I had the money and the time and the youth, I would go back and get more degrees. But the reality is you don't want to be so overqualified that someone looks at your resume and says, if we hire this person, they're going to be gone in 2 months because they got more degrees than half the staff. And so you just want to, you want to be cognizant of that, to not spend all of your time and energy, because it does cost a lot of money to go to school. I mean, I spent well over $150,000 on my education, and I can, I can say this, that I paid it all off, but that is not the case for everyone, right? So it's really important to begin to think about your education and the expense associated with that and the rate of return on investment.
Thank you for that. So in our program, we have a medical pathway and an engineering pathway. And a student in the engineering pathway asked, how do you see engineering helping you in the medical field?
That is a great question. And I'm going to take that from the orthopedic side of the house, because we have had a lot of orthopedic surgeons that were engineers. They were, and so they brought that engineering to designing better implants for total knee replacements and total hip replacements and for shoulder replacements and for other devices that help us to fixate fractures. And what I mean by fracture and break, oftentimes people will say, well, I broke a bone. That is the same thing as saying I fractured a bone. So when I fill out a chart on a patient, I can't put they broke their wrist. I have to say they fractured their distal radius, or they fractured their ulna, or they fractured some other bone. But so oftentimes they're used kind of interchangeably. But that being said, you're designing implants from an engineering perspective. So some of the folks that have been the most successful in my profession have been folks that have went down that path or similar path, where they're doing research and designing implants for future orthopedic surgeries that are really going to help to improve the continuity of care and provide devices that will improve the quality of life of our patients. So don't think that anything you do in medicine, I've seen people that have gotten a degree in Spanish, who went to medical school. I've seen people that have gotten a degree in engineering. I've seen people who've gotten, a degree in something that was completely not related to medicine, but nevertheless, they use that degree and those resources to make themselves a better provider. So it doesn't mean that you have to get a biology degree, even though that's the typical degree that most folks get, is a biology degree or a biochemistry degree, because a lot of the requisite courses that you need to take to go into medicine kind of fall in line with that. But don't be compartmentalized to just getting a biology degree. Think about other things that you might have an interest in, because I think it provides a rich and a diverse environment of applicants coming into medical programs that have other backgrounds that I think would really help to enhance the work that we do here in medicine.
Well, I just wanted to add a little bit, I'm currently doing robotic surgery. So mechanical, electrical engineering, all we need, those in order to make, those parts and, and it's a huge, use of robotic, a lot of people, they're moving towards minimal invasive surgeries and stuff, so, I mean, there's always a role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, feel free for those who are doing that. My hat's off to you. I've never been really good at mathematics. So for those who are really good at engineering, you have to be pretty adroit at mathematics. So, get used to differential calculus and some of those other things that keep me up at night. Not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but something that I think would be advantageous to the work that you do.
Definitely. Our next question is, do you think you could take us through a day in your life as a director?
Yeah, so very busy day for me. Typically, I wake up early in the morning. Today, I have 12 Zoom calls, just to give you an indication of my day. And so, I listen to Zoom calls related to hiring new staff, training new staff, credentialing new staff, as well as the day-to-day affairs of the APP workforce and program that I'm responsible for. So, I'm adjudicating issues. I'm working with the union on issues. I'm working with leadership on issues. And the issues are, they span the gamut. And so one of the things that we do, though, is we work collaboratively to ensure that we are delivering excellent care to our patient population. And so I'm very, very thankful that I have, and I'm very blessed to have a very good working relationship with our physicians, with our APPs, with our senior administrators, and we're all coalescing around a common goal to ensure that we're delivering the best and most compassionate and patient-centered care possible that we can. And so I'm very, very fortunate to work for an institution that values the health and well-being of the communities that we serve.
Yes, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Our next question is, what made you want to go into orthopedic surgery specifically?
So that's a great question. So I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to be kind of, hopefully it might be humorous to you as it was to me. I wanted to be an emergency medicine provider. I had graduated, I had worked at Loma Linda for a number of years in emergency medicine, and I had went to school because I wanted to do that. I did a lot of rotations in emergency medicine, and I did several rotations in orthopedic surgery. And I promised myself I would never, ever do orthopedic surgery. I would only do emergency medicine, because who wanted to stand in the operating room for 8 hours a day doing total knee replacements? I mean, that just did not float my boat. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in the ER because there's always something happening. It's never a dull moment. There's always something hectic going on. And so it's always fun. I really enjoyed working with the nurses and the physicians. And, I enjoyed taking care of the patient. So it seemed like a natural fit for me. And for some reason, I just had a hard time securing a position in emergency medicine. And someone says, hey, you're a big guy. I mean, it looks like you can crack those bones pretty well. Perhaps maybe you can, you'd be a good orthopedic guy. And I was like, well, I don't think that's the, kind of the resume that I would really, articulate out to the orthopedic team, but, I'll throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. And so I threw my hat in the ring and got accepted into a fellowship program and fell in love with orthopedics. I kind of dumped the emergency medicine side very quickly, even though it's a great field and I have a lot of great colleagues that work there. But I just fell in love with orthopedics. But if you had asked me and I had been a betting person, I would have lost because I had no intention of going into orthopedics. And I've been there now for 18 years.
That's pretty great. So how was your medical school experience?
It was great. I sat in the back of the class and I'm sure now Joe could tell you that, but so I sat in the back of the class, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was a great program. It was very intense. It was very tough. It required me to do a lot of studying. We took tons of course units, and it took the vast majority of my time. And so I would wake up studying. I would go to bed studying. I'd be up in the middle of the night writing papers, studying adult medicine courses, and it was very, very tough. But I really enjoyed it. I just fell in love with medicine. I'm really good at anatomy and physiology. That's really kind of why orthopedics is kind of a good fit for me, because I really understand it. It makes sense to me. I can conceptualize it. And it's been a great experience, but let me not sugarcoat it. It is very tough to get into a medical program today, regardless of if you're going into, an advanced practice provider role or if you're going into medical school. It is very, very tough. And so you have to resign in your mind that you're going to complete it, right? You're not going to get fatigued. You're not going to get, there's going to be times where we all get stressed out. That's just the nature of coursework. But you really want to focus on your career goals and having the resilience and the internal tenacity, if you will. And I mentioned that earlier, to be able to pursue and complete your goals. For me, nothing is going to stop me from completing my goals. I'd like to compete. I like to get out there. I like to take the next step. And, I had a lot of things against me. I came from an underserved background. I was a first generation student. I was not encouraged to go to college. In fact, I was encouraged to go into the military. And so because people thought, well, you'd probably be better in the military than you would in college. And I was able to prove them wrong. So you can do anything you put your mind to. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish anything. You can do anything you put your mind to, but you're going to have to put in hard work, blood, sweat, and tears to really bring it to fruition, because it is tough out there. But if you're committed to completing your goal, you'll get there. You just got to have faith that you can make it.
That's a great piece of advice. Our next question is from a student who's a little divided between the career path that they're interested in. And they have a question on the difference between nurse practitioning and a physician assistant.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we have excellent nurse practitioners and excellent physician assistants at my institution and throughout the country. Nurse practitioner is a little bit different because there's different concentrations that you can go into. You can become a family nurse practitioner, which is one concentration or population foci, or you can go and become an acute care nurse practitioner. You can become a pediatric nurse practitioner where you only take care of pediatric patients. So there's different routes within the nurse practitioner field that you can go into. Many of these are terminal master's degree programs. There's quite a few doctorate of nurse practitioner programs, so you can get a doctorate degree in nurse practitioner if you decided to go that route. So there is quite a bit of opportunity, and that's a talk within itself, right? Because we have a lot of different routes for folks to go through nursing that they could expand their career, and then from the bedside registered nurse all the way up to the advanced practice provider level. So you can definitely go to that route. On the physician assistant side of the house is typically you complete a baccalaureate degree, and then you go into a 2-year program. USC has a 3-year program, and you become a physician assistant. And typically, nurse practitioners and physician assistants have overlapping responsibilities in the clinical setting. I'll just give you orthopedics as an example. The nurse practitioners in orthopedics are doing similar to what I do as a PA in orthopedics. So there's a lot of overlap in what we do, and we all have a common goal of taking care of the patient. So it doesn't matter which track you go to. If you want to be a nurse practitioner, go for it. If you want to be a PA, go for it. They're both great careers, and I think you would be satisfied with either choice.
Thank you. Our next question is from a student who asks, did you ever receive pressure from your parents at an early age to go into medicine? And if so, how did you handle that?
I did not. I came from kind of a broken home, so I didn't. My dad and mom was not involved in my childhood. To be honest with you, I was raised by my grandmother, and she just encouraged me to go to college. She said, we live in a very kind of underserved and under-resourced area, and so if you want to make something of your life, you're going to have to go to college. I mean, don't ever ask for a handout. Go to college and make something of yourself. There's no free lunch in life, Dion. And so if you really want to be an honorable member of society and make a contribution that's impactful, go to college and make a difference. And so that really resonated with me very well. And this, she took care of me and she raised me, and she had to move out of a retirement place into a very dangerous environment to raise me because the court system awarded me over to her. So because my mother was, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to take care of us. And so I took that to heart, that she was willing to make that sacrifice for me. And I was able to put my best foot forward and go to college and make a difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Our next question is from a student who asks, what are some things you recommend people to do who are interested in pursuing a career in the medical field as high school students?
So say that question again. I'm sorry, one more time.
What are some things that you recommend us as students in high school to do if we're interested in pursuing a career in medicine?
So I would just recommend that you take the coursework. You don't have to know if you want to be an OB-GYN or if you want to be an orthopedic surgeon or if you want to be a general surgeon or a family practice physician. You don't have to worry about that right now because some of that stuff is discussed in medical school when you go through medical school and you find interest or an area of interest that you want to pursue. But the key is to take that coursework early on. When you leave high school, get involved in college early on. Take your physics courses, take your general chemistry courses, your organic chemistry courses, take your statistics, your calculus courses, get all of that stuff out of the way, take all your social science courses. And the other thing I would just really just kind of throw into this is that do a lot of community service. Because I've sat on admission committees before in the past, and I get a lot of 4.0 students applying to medical programs. But what separates those students is those students that have really done a lot of community service. So if you're working in the community, if you're making a difference for people, that's what matters. And that is valuable. Believe me, that is valuable. So I just want to say how important it is to really make a difference in the community by helping people who have really fallen on hard times. So, some organizations you could work for would be like Habitat for Humanity, or working for your local church, or working for the Candlelighters, a cancer research foundation, helping to raise money. There's so many opportunities out there to get involved in the community and to make a difference. And when you're applying to medical school, that sometimes is a deciding factor, right? When you're looking at 2 or 3, 4.0 students that are equivalent in terms of their what they did in their undergraduate coursework, and so you're trying to decide who do we bring in. And sometimes some of that deciding factor may be that you look at someone who has spent a tremendous amount of time in helping their community, and that's really valuable to me, and I think valuable to admissions criteria as well.
Definitely. Our next question asks, do you think that the college you went to impacted your career?
No, I think my experiences impacted my career. I think, being a CNA and a medical assistant early on set the course for me to go into medicine, and really, I think, just helped to pave the way for me to get into a medical program, because I needed that experience prior to enrolling. And I think it was really a phenomenal journey that I had which started in high school, as I mentioned earlier, and then continued to mature until I got into college, and then subsequently into my medical program. So I really, really value those experiences. I don't look at any experience that I've had in life, whether good or bad, as a negative. I looked at it as a learning experience that really helped me to grow into the professional that I am today. And so I don't look, and I've had some negative experiences growing up in a household that wasn't conducive to the nuclear family, but at the end of the day, I was able to use those experiences to create the momentum to move forward to complete the goals that I had set for me. And then over time, I learned to develop some additional goals. And so I would just encourage everyone here online, set those goals early and then pursue them vigorously.
That's a really good piece of advice. Going on that, were there any specific mentors or advisors who helped you develop your medical skills?
Yeah, so doctors. I worked with some incredible physicians, and still do today work with some incredible physicians. And I'm constantly learning, by the way. You never stop learning. I'm a lifelong learner. So, I've had some really good physicians along the way that took time out of their day to say, hey, Dion, look at this patient, tell me what you see, give me your thoughts, and then let's go debrief and talk about what the actual diagnosis is. And so I've had a lot of great mentors along the way. I've had a lot of good administrators along the way. I've met some really good nursing staff that has really helped me as well. Nurses and physicians and other PAs and other advanced practice providers as well. So the culmination of all of those experiences has been very helpful. But it is important to identify 1 or 2 mentors to really help you. And so, if you're in medicine, find 1 or 2 mentors that is invested in your career as you are, and work with that mentor to accomplish your goal. Because there's some times that you get stressed out. There's times where you need to confide in someone who can really give you constructive criticism about your goal and whether it's attainable or not. I'm a firm believer that most goals are attainable if you put it in the right perspective, but there's some things that are just not a good fit. And so sometimes you may need someone else to kind of say, hey, I really know you're passionate about that, but I think you're more passionate about this. And so perhaps this is your calling, perhaps this is your purpose. And so it's really important to have mentors in place. And I even have mentors today, and I'm very thankful for their time and energy, especially on the research. I do quite a bit of research. So I do have mentors that I partner with on the research side of the house.
Thank you. Another question was asking about your residency experience and kind of like the number of years of schooling and the skills that you had to learn during the residency program.
So residency program was 12 months. If I look at the total number of years that I spent in school, let's see, 2 years, 4 years, that's 6, residency 7, 8, 11. So I've spent a total of, and then if I count my fellowship, that's a total of 12 years. So that's a lot of years. And I had a full head of hair when I started school. And by the time I finished my 12th year, I was bald as an eagle. But that's another story for a different time. But that being said, I enjoy school. I enjoy the opportunity to learn. I enjoy the opportunity to give back. And one of the things that's always important is once you get to where you are, pay it forward, right? Go back and bring up someone else. Do these types of Zoom calls. Give back to the community, because that's really what it's about. So, the amount of years that I've spent in school have prepared me for the role that I have today. And not just the years of school, but the years of experience too, because my role is primarily administrative. I do spend a day a week in clinic, but mostly it's administrative. And so you have to get, in my role, you have to have both administrative experience and clinical experience, as well as dabble in a little bit of research to fully understand kind of what the role really involves. And because it is constantly evolving.
Definitely. So going back to the administrative practice, how would you describe your day as an administrator?
So yeah, again, just as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is just working with our teams to make sure that we're delivering high quality, high valued healthcare, and adjudicating any concerns or issues that are raised by the team, looking at ways that we could improve the team so that we can expand our bandwidth, looking at ways we can enhance the work that we do and bring more visibility to the APP workforce, to our nurse practitioners, PAs, and certified registered nurse anesthetists. And so, it's working in collaboration with the team, to ensure that we're doing the best job that we can, and we do a phenomenal job. And we've been in our community for a long time, and I'm very proud of our senior leadership. I'm very proud of our nurses. I'm very proud of our physicians and PAs and ancillary staff. And I mean, and the list goes on and on. I can't list everyone that I'm proud of because I'm sure I'm going to forget someone. And so, but everyone is working towards a common goal, and that is to improve the healthcare that we provide. And we do a very good job at that, in my opinion. And if you look at the U.S. News and World Reports, we're up there. So I'm pretty happy with my institution and their business model. I really do think it really speaks well to the care that we provide and the vision that we have around that.
Thank you. How about, or our next question talks about how does your role as an administrator compare with the role of a physician, a practicing physician?
So there is a little bit of a dichotomy there. So my role is a little bit different. So physicians, at least in the orthopedic setting, I'm not doing surgery. I used to be in the operating room many years ago, but in my administrative role now, I primarily do clinic one day a week, and then 80% of my time is kind of allocated to administrative activity outside of the clinic environment, even though I do interact there. The physician is doing the surgery, right? So, I'm not doing a total knee replacement. I might be helping him do a total knee replacement, but he's responsible for doing the knee replacement and the hip replacement and responsible for the overall care of the patient. So, we work together as a team, and I'm a firm believer in team-based care, working from an interdisciplinary, interprofessional approach, where we're working as members of the team. That model, in my viewpoint, benefits the patient. So we all have a specific role that we do, and everyone's role is valuable in the delivery of healthcare.
Thank you so much for all of your wonderful answers. Our next question kind of steps away from your career, and we were wondering, what are some hobbies that you have outside of the medical spectrum and other activities that help you de-stress?
Great question. So I love to travel. I've been to some of the places where I've been to Israel, I've been to Egypt, I've been to Dubai, I've been to Japan, I've been to China. I climbed the Great Wall, not that I finished it because no one can climb the Great Wall. It takes days, if not weeks or months to do that. Plus your knees would probably go out doing that. But I've been to a lot of places. I love to travel and see different cultures. I've been to Ethiopia. I've been to a lot of places, and it's just been a phenomenal opportunity. And I've examined some of the healthcare systems in some of those areas as well. And so it's just interesting to see how people think and some of the customs. So I'm a firm believer in really getting out and seeing the world. And prior to the pandemic, I did a lot of traveling, and now since the pandemic has been here, we've all been kind of, in a sense, almost sheltering in place for the most part, even though things are starting to open up. I'm not sure how the high schoolers are handling that, but for me, I love to travel. And the way that I decompress is I love to watch sci-fi. I'm a big Aliens fan and Predator Part 1, 2, and 3, and so I watch the same movies over and over again as if I've never seen them for the first time. And so that's just the kind of the way that I decompress. I love science fiction. And so anytime that I can see an alien or a robot or something going crazy, it just floats my boat. So I really enjoy those types. The other thing that I like to do, in all seriousness, is I go to church, and so that's a big thing for me, and it really helps me to decompress. And so I'm a firm believer in doing that, and it's really helpful in my day to day, and it puts things in perspective for me. So church is a big part of who I am and what I celebrate.
Definitely. Our next kind of story is we were wondering, what's your most complex case that you've ever come across?
Well, that's there's a whole bunch of those. I think, motocross riders, right? They love to ride motocross, and those folks have more guts than I do to do that. And so I had, many moons ago, and this was at the time that I was shadowing as a student. I remember a gentleman that got into a really bad motocross accident while riding the track competitively, and I saw the anatomy of his knee, literally the entire anatomy of his knee, because he had significant soft tissue damage, and it just kind of threw me for a loop, because he had a lot of dirt and gravel, and I had to kind of clean all of that out at the same time. He was sedated, and so here I am. I'm looking at the knee joint, and I'm thinking to myself, "Where's the skin?" It's not here. It's gone. And so I'm trying to, and so it just it took me for a loop, because I've seen gross anatomy, but that really gave credence to that term, gross anatomy, right? Because you're seeing everything, and it's so. But also, I think the bigger issue was I knew that gentleman had significant injuries, and it would affect his ability to walk. And so I think that's been one of the most challenging things in healthcare, is oftentimes you really have an interest in trying to fix everything that comes, that you come in contact with, but you can't, right? You do the best job that you can. I think that the hardest part, though, probably for me, is seeing young people pass away before their time, essentially, of seeing, an 8-year-old person drown in a swimming pool because it was completely preventable, and having to do CPR and not being able to resuscitate that 8-year-old child. I think that has probably been the hardest thing that I have had to encounter in my career, is seeing young people die before their time.
Definitely. Going on that, do you have any advice you would offer to students who do come across situations like that?
I really wish I knew how to advise someone. I mean, I think it's so hard because we all kind of process things a little bit different, right? And how we look at things, how we look at pain, how we look at suffering, how we look at death, everything is a little bit different. And when you're in high school, you don't really think about that, right? We're focused on, who made varsity, who didn't, what college are you going to go to, and who said what about what. And so, or who's involved in the talent show, who's going to be the next president of the student body. You don't think about those things. When you get in healthcare, things are different, and you have to know how to process things. And I think if you look at COVID-19 has been very, very hard on society. It's been very hard on people, right? And how do you process that? How do you process that we've had over 200,000 people die from COVID-19? And so I think it's really hard to answer that question, but I would say that you do your best to process the situation, and you try not to let the situation steer you into the wrong depression, into the wrong direction, where you become so anxious or so stressed out that you can't function, right? So I take everything in stride. I really do. I know that there's things that I can do and that I can make a difference. And I know there's things that no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, even if I give it 150%, that there's some things that are going to have a bad outcome, right? Such as an 8-year-old who drowns in a swimming pool, and no matter what I do, I can't bring that person back. And so it's understanding that, and it's being able to continue to have the fortitude and the strength, and the ability to continue to move on, because you got more patients to see that need your help.
Going on that, what is one time in your past where you finally realized that yes, this is your calling? Like, kind of.
Well, I did that in high school. In high school, I knew that I wanted to be in medicine. I just felt it was my calling, my God-given calling to do that. And I just felt that was the place where I needed to be. I felt more comfortable in medicine. I didn't get kind of freaked out with, blood and, drawing blood and all the stuff that some people do when they go into medicine. Like, they just can't see the side of blood and they pass out. That wasn't me. I just, because I kind of did my training in the emergency room. So I saw everything there was to see in that environment, because that's typically the first place where you're going to see trauma, right, is in the emergency room. And so I just felt that was my calling. I don't see myself doing anything else other than in the medical field. Nothing else floats my boat. Would I want to be a politician? No. Am I interested in being a lawyer? No. But medicine, there's just something about medicine that gets my blood boiling, and I'm so excited about it and so passionate about it. And I just love taking care of people. I love finding solutions to problems and critically thinking my way through the process. And to me, it just brings joy to my heart that I can help someone else and that I can make a difference and an impact, right? Because it's not about me, it's about the patients that we're taking care of. And it's about providers that are taking care of those patients to ensure that they have the necessary resources and support needed to do the job.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I think now we'd like to give a chance to anybody who'd like to unmute and ask any questions themselves. The floor is yours.
I wanted to ask where did you find the resources to get into those clinical settings? Because like maybe in college, there were like places where you could ask people or ask doctors if you can go. I'm messing this up. Okay. Do you get my question?
Absolutely. No. And by the way, you did very well with that question. So thank you. So typically there's a lot of resources. Typically what I would recommend is that you volunteer. At a local hospital, and oftentimes that would get you plugged into some of the additional opportunities that are available to students. I have a lot of students that have asked me, hey, could I come and shadow you? And I'm like, sure, come and shadow me. And so they'll get a chance to, observe some of the work that I do. And also, I set up some time for them to talk to other providers, right? So they can get a different perspective, not just my perspective, but somebody else's perspective, because they might look at it a little bit differently. But really volunteering in the community, volunteering in the hospital settings will get you plugged into additional opportunities you did not know, was available to you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I just want to ask if you would say that us being in eSTEM would be a good pathway to eventually going into the medical or engineering fields.
100%, 100%, because I think that is a great pathway and a great segue into engineering and medicine. It's going to prepare you for the courses that you're going to have to take, at least the requisite coursework needed for that career path. So kudos to you and others who are on this pathway, because I think it gives you a leg up, and I think it makes you extremely competitive as you apply for these programs.
Thank you.
If that was one of the things that, if someone had asked a question earlier, if there was any advice that you would want to have gotten in high school, and I wish I had that career path, given to me, because I think it would have, created more opportunity for me to pursue medicine a lot earlier than I did.
I would like to ask, what was one of your most memorable classes in all of your educational career? Because within our STEM program, if you choose to go the medical pathway, we do offer anatomy and physiology, and then pathology, infectious diseases. And then if you're in the engineering pathway, you get a manufacturing class, you can get your regular intro to engineering and get certified. So I was just curious to see, as past high school, what classes do you find the most memorable?
Anatomy and physiology. I love anatomy and physiology. It makes complete sense to me. I understand tendons and nerves and bones, and I just loved it. I mean, all the other sciences I didn't do as well in as I would have liked. I struggled in physics. I struggled in OChem, because SN2 reactions doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I love anatomy and physiology and how the body works. And so it just made perfect sense to me. It was probably the class that really helped to solidify for me that medicine was the direction that I needed to go, but I had to complete some of the other courses to get in there. Another course too was a course on diversity. I mean, right now there's a huge push for diversity in healthcare, and I think it is so good just to learn how people think about different things and how people approach healthcare, because everyone approaches it a little bit differently. And so I had to learn when I was, the way that I think about healthcare may not be the way that someone else thinks about healthcare. And I'll give you a great example of that. Sometimes when you deliver bad news to someone, sometimes you say, okay, well, unfortunately, this is what the X-ray shows. But when you talk to certain folks that come from different backgrounds, they're like, well, you have to go through the senior person within the household who then communicates with this person, who then tells this person what what you really want to say. And so you have to go through that kind of hierarchical structure. And so it's really important to really understand where people are coming from. And so, I think those were the two big classes. Cultural competency was a great class. It just helped me to learn how people think. And, sometimes we come in with a cookie cutter thought about how patients would perceive certain things. And oftentimes that's wrong. So it's really important to really understand from your patient's perspective, kind of how they view their healthcare, and your job is to kind of coalesce around providing healthcare that they can buy into.
Okay, I had a question I'm gonna have to ask. So, Dr. Kidd, I'm Dr. Law, and I'm the director of the STEM Academy. A little history about our program is I was tasked to build this program and building from the ground up about 5 years ago, and I've done extensive research in STEM education, and and trying to close that representation gap among females and marginalized groups. Mm-hmm. So one of the focus here is, we have pathways and we have classes, but we focus a lot on project-based learning. Mm-hmm. The work experience, the hands-on classes, we have our career tech courses, and the soft skills, the 21st century skills, collaboration, critical thinking. And so every time we talk about project-based learning, the students are like, we have to do research, and you get all those complaints, and they oftentimes don't know how valuable it is until they go out into the real world, that whatever bridge we're building from high school to college or high school to careers. And so can you tell them how important it is for doctors, engineers, all professionals to collaborate, to critically think, to be creative, all of that, because that's how we approach science and medicine and everything else in the real world. So please emphasize how important that is so that I can stop hearing them cry. I'm just kidding. They're a wonderful group of students. I love them all.
So I can tell you that if you do not collaborate, you will not be successful. And there is no I, there is we did this. We collaborated on this. This was an idea that we coalesced around. And oftentimes when I interview candidates, if I hear that I did this and I did this, then I start to think to myself, did you ever collaborate with anyone on these projects? Because everything in medicine is relational. So if you don't build those relationships early on, you would not be successful, because you have to get buy-in. Because there's times where you have ideas and people go, well, those are great ideas, but I'm not really interested in implementing those ideas, or I don't see the rate of return on investment to do that. And it seems like more work for me to do that than it is not so. So oftentimes it is so important to collaborate. And by the way, medicine is all about collaborating with members of the healthcare team. And so there's going to be times where you're going to have to rely on another member to provide input in the care delivery of that patient. So what you don't want to do is be kind of compartmentalized, that I'm not going to collaborate, and I'm not going to leverage those interdisciplinary synergies, but then I'm going to do this on my own. And if you do, you won't have a long, fulfilling career. And oftentimes you'll move from job to job because of your inability to collaborate. The other thing too is, oftentimes when search committees reach out for references, one of the first questions that they ask for is this person teachable? Is this person a collaborator? Has this person collaborated on projects? Is this person someone that would be a good fit for our institution, because we're extremely collaborative here? And oftentimes those are the buzzwords you want to put in your CV, is that you are collaborative. So if you're not collaborating every day in what you do, then my encouragement to you is to start doing that, because that is a major precondition for your success in healthcare and any other industry that you will partake in. In fact, by the way, and I'll just say this, as in my career at being a hiring manager at certain positions, I would not hire someone that was not a good collaborator, and someone who knew how to bring people together, right? Because it's all about teamwork. We don't work in silos in healthcare. At least we try not to, right? Work in silos. We try to work in a team-based environment, and that's what it's about. Patients' healthcare benefits from a team-based environment far more than it would ever benefit from a compartmentalized structure. So again, I would encourage you to not bemoan collaboration, but to endorse it, embrace it, and make it a part of your burning platform as you move your career forward.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. We really value our time. We have a quick question in the chat, and then we can wrap up. So in the chat, our question is, What do admissions officers look for when you're applying to competitive nursing programs?
So that's a great question. And so having talked with some of those folks, they look for people that have that are compassionate, people that have an interest in wanting to do nursing. Nursing is a great field. Our nurses work really hard. Nurses around the country work really hard. They're on the front lines in COVID-19 and fighting this virus. And so what they're looking for is someone who has a passion, for healthcare. Someone who's completed the requisite coursework to get into nursing, someone who understands a little bit about nursing, right? It's always helpful to understand, not that you have to understand it completely, but that, you have to have researched, the profession to really understand what it does. And I think that's really important. So for those future nurses out there, that is a great career path. And I would 100% support you if you decided to go that path. That is, our nurses are doing a stellar job. And by the way, we have more nurses than we have physicians and PAs and other healthcare providers. So nursing is historically is a very solid profession and a very well, how can I say, well acknowledged and well recognized and appreciated profession. So for those that are going to go into nursing, my hat's off to you, because that is a great, great career path. And you're on the right path if you decide to go that route.
Okay. And for our final words, we heard somewhere that you are also involved in motivational speaking. And we were wondering if you had some final words for all of us.
Yeah, so number one, thank you so much for your time again. It's just been a real pleasure. Great questions. Don't stop doing what you do. Continue to go through the STEM program, continue to learn as much as you can, collaborate, do community service, start completing your requisite courseworks, give it your all, and don't let anyone stop you from completing your goals. The only person that can stop you is you. You're the only person that can stop you. So continue to move forward. And I hope in the next 5 to 10 years that I can call you colleagues.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Kidd. Thank you everybody for joining us on our very first virtual STEM speaker series.
Thank you very much, folks, and good luck to you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.